Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. Wow, huge crowd, thank you. Today we're going to talk about the European Accessibility Act and what this means for you as a developer. It says VueJS developer on here and web developer on screen because I changed a little bit to be more fitting for your job world. And I started to get interested in the European Accessibility Act or in accessibility in general when I was still studying for my bachelor's. And I had to do a research in accessibility. And I went over to web shops that were actually selling products for people that were blind. And I contacted them and told them, okay, when somebody that's blind is using your website, they can't actually order something. What do you think about that? Because you're not accessible. And they told me, well, we do not care. They can just ask a family member. Who cares? So that's when something switched in my brain, and that's when I started getting all into accessibility. Little side note, I'm actually a backend developer. Sometimes do a little bit of full stack with VueJS, but I am a backend developer with an extra interest in accessibility, so I want to take you with me on that. So today, of course, we're going to talk about the European Accessibility Act. We're going to talk about the WCAG, WCAG, some people call it, and how to improve your VueJS application or how to start your VueJS applications to be fully accessible. Spoiler alert, of course, you're here to learn about the law and how to not get fined and how to not get sued. However, I hope this also kind of makes something go off in your head to maybe think about people that you might not have thought about before. So instead of just learning how to comply, to just also care about your users. So just a little quiz. How many people think that 1 out of 6 people live here with a disability? Oh, that's quite a lot. Who thinks 1 out of 20? Oh, that's even more. Who thinks 1 out of 40? Also some heads. Okay. Well, the real answer here is 1 out of 6 people. Now, these people aren't all blind. You also have to keep in mind dyslexia, ADHD, autism, blind, deaf. Everything in this is in the 1 out of 6. But they all have to be taken care of when looking at your web application. And I always hear companies saying, yeah, okay, but our users are very technical, they're very smart. They do not need that extra help with accessibility. Right? They are technically very smart, they know where to click and when. If you do UI tests, you know that that's not true already, but it is not true. 1 out of 8 men is colorblind. This means if you have a yellow button with a white text, good luck. They're not going to see it. And that's 1 out of 8. So there's a big chance that somebody that uses your website is colorblind. 1 out of 10 people have a learning disability. Think about ADHD, autism, or some kind of thing that makes it harder to go to an education or something like that. If you have a UI that's very hard to see, if there are a lot of buttons, a lot of clicking, they can get overwhelmed and it will shut down the application. And 1 out of 6 people will experience hearing loss at some point of their life. This means if you use a lot of videos and you don't have any subtitles, well, that's also a large margin of your user base gone. But there is more. You can have a permanent disability, but you can also have a temporary or situational disability. So you need to imagine that I can break my arm today, and then I can't use both of my arms anymore, both of my hands. That has to be taken care of. But also, somebody that just had a child and needs to take care of it while also being on a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, those people also need to be taken care of. Of course, blind people, but also a distracted driver. I know people that are actually going to the car kit and are reading up web pages while they are driving. That happens as well. Situational, I sometimes like to watch videos on the train, and the train is very busy. I don't want everybody to hear my audio, so subtitles on YouTube are sometimes very helpful. And also, of course, if you have some kind of voice application, you also have to take care of, for example, the non-verbal, but also the people that have heavy accents. Now that you know what kind of people are out there, possibly in your user base, I want to get into the User Accessibility Act. So the User Accessibility Act is a directive set up by the EU. A directive means that the EU wants all EU countries to do something, a goal or a result, by a certain date. For the European Accessibility Act, this was brought up in 2018 and it has to become law for every EU country by June this year. This doesn't mean that you only have to be involved if you use or if you work for a EU country. This also means that if you work for an American country and they take their servers or they open their services for European citizens, then they also have to comply to the European Accessibility Acts. And it's not just websites, you also have to think about ATMs, operating systems, TV equipment, phones. Those also have to be accessible. So, but what or who needs to comply for websites, for example? Well, public sector websites already had to be accessible by 2016. This was another act. It's kind of the older brother of the European Accessibility Act, so it's not kind of the European Accessibility Act, but it looks like it. And for the private sector, it's banking, e-commerce, media websites, think Netflix, NOS, those kind of websites. Travel websites, KLM, Dutch railway system, buses, everything in that kind of sector has to be accessible. And telephone and TV services, think a Vodafone, for example. These are all very important for people that are, for example, blind, that they can also use it. But you have to keep in mind, you only have to be fully accessible. If you are business to customer, so if you have a business-to-business company, you don't have to be. You need to have over 10 employees and over 2 million in turnover annually. If you don't have this, then you don't have to follow it. I would recommend to follow it because it makes your UI look better as well. But if you have a blog website or if you have a personal portfolio website, you don't have to care about this. Now, the big question is, what is going to happen when you fail to comply? This is a brand new law, so we have to see what the EU is going to do. But there are these kinds of similar laws in the US already. What we see in the US is that people or big companies and also smaller companies are getting sued for millions and thousands of dollars. So that is your risk. You can get sued or you can get fined. How this is exactly is going to look like if you don't comply here in the EU, you have to wait and see. But that can happen. Now, how do we actually comply? Accessibility people always have one framework that they follow to be accessible. That is the WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is recommended to use at all times. And it's created by the W3C, which keeps in mind or registrates all the basic principles of how you also use HTML and CSS. Now, those, or the WCAG exists out of 4 principles. And those are these. So perceivable, if somebody is blind, they still need to hear and touch things. that still needs to be a possibility. If somebody is deaf, they still need to be able to view stuff and touch things. If somebody can touch something, they still need to be able to hear and view something. Operatable is to provide a way to use your website with a keyboard. So you always need to be able to reach important parts of your website with your keyboard. Now, U is to keep it simple. Keep your UI simple and consistent so that people that have, for example, autism can also use it without getting overwhelmed. And Boost means that it works on multiple devices, that it works on multiple web browsers, and that it works for different voice-over technologies. Now, there are certain compliances levels for the WCAG as well. A is the must-have, AA is should-haves, and AAA is what would absolutely be great if you had it. So AAA is really hard sometimes, especially for bigger applications, to comply with. So by law, you have to comply with AA, which is the should-haves. And A, you should just always keep that in mind anyways. So if you look at the WCAG, you should always follow the WCAG 2.1 AA. Why? The 2.0 was, I believe, from 2004. So that's quite old. So they made a new version, which is the 2.1, which we are currently following now. And they accessible for principles, well, I already explained it to you, with 50 different success criteria, which is quite a lot. So, well, you can understand we only have half an hour. So I can't go into everything, but I think we will be here for, I guess, 2 hours. I actually give full workshops on how you can get your website fully accessible, and that takes like 2 to 3 hours. So I will not bother you with that. But what I can help you with is getting the low-hanging fruit, like the things that I see happen most on websites. And WebAIM, which is a non-profit that does research on how much accessible different websites are, does a research every year for the top 1,000,000 most viewed homepages. Do this every year and then come back with the results, okay, which errors were most found. And what turns out, the average amount of accessibility errors found for a web page on the top 1,000,000 of websites is 56. That's quite a lot. That surprised me. But I can also show you what's the most, what happened the most, or what they saw the most. These are these. So low contrast text, yellow on white, light blue on white. Missing alternative text for images. So having no explanation for images when either an image doesn't load correctly or when someone is using a screen reader. Missing form input labels, empty links, empty buttons, and missing document languages is also a big one. 96 of these were already found, and the other stuff were more complicated accessibility issues. And these were the most common errors of the last 5 years, so it is consistent. Now, how to discover your own issues? The best way is to research by a panel. For example, I know the Dutch Accessibility Foundation has a panel of people that are blind or have epilepsy or have ADHD, where you can go to and ask them, hey, we want to do research on our website. Can you ask like 3 people that are blind to check our website? And then they will get a bit of money for that, and then you will come back with, okay, this is what's wrong, this is what needs to be altered. There are also accessibility audits from external people that will also come back with a report from their own developers that are specialized in accessibility. And those people can come back also with a research report, and then you can do whatever you want with it internally. And of course, you can do it yourself. So I think that's the most interesting. So let's get into that. The first thing is semantic HTML. People love to put diffs in diffs in diffs in diffs. The screen reader doesn't like that much. If you turn the screen reader on a website that's full of diffs, the only thing you will hear is diff, 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 diff. Now, good luck finding your way to the website if that's all you hear and you can't see it, right? So try to change everything in HTML or in your VueJS templates to some kind of semantic version of it. So use header, use nav, use main, use article. There's a whole list of them if you Google. Also some that can quite surprise you. So take a look at that. And also, of course, VueJS wants to help you with that. So they also have a whole page on custom stuff that you can use to make your application more accessible. Now, once you have that, what you're going to start with is going with a keyboard, do tap, 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 tap all the way to see if you can get everywhere without having to use your mouse. And you can also use a screen reader. It takes a bit of time to get used to it, but if you watch a video or two for 20 minutes, you will get the hang of it eventually. For Apple users, I've seen a lot of MacBooks around here. So you can use the standard VoiceOver, which is hidden in your settings. And for Windows, you have to install NVDA because the Windows screen reader sucks. So, I'm being honest here. I'm a Microsoft MVB. I have a special title by them. I get to go to the headquarters every year, but the screen reader absolutely sucks. So, yeah. Now, you also have browser plugins that can do it automatically. Keep in mind, it will only fight 50% of all the issues that you have on your website, so I would also recommend doing it manually with your keyboard, but you can also use this to make it easier. And you can do testing, you can do unit tests. I've also heard that you can do it with Playwright nowadays, so if you want to learn more about that, there is a session about testing on Friday with Playwright. But what you can use is JustX or VitusX. JustX works fine, even if you're using ViTest. I don't know why, but it works. So I'm going to show you that. So let's look at some code. First, I'm going to duplicate my screen. So welcome to my beautiful VueJS fan site that definitely makes over 2 million a year. This is it. And the easiest thing you can start with, of course, is just tabbing, seeing if every input, if I can get to the buttons, so that I can tell it's actually usable by keyboard. If I'm done with that, Firefox and also Chrome, and I believe Safari too, also has an accessibility tab. And in here, I can say all issues, and it will already tell me, hey, this text is poor contrast. Hey, this image doesn't have all text. Hey, this text box doesn't have a label. So you don't have to install anything if you don't want to. This is a great start already. Now, if you actually do want to test, if you do want to scan your website or your web page quickly, there are two options. The first one is Wave. Let me close this, otherwise it's going to be very quick. Which will show you kind of the same, but very low contrast, and then a reference to where you can find the solution. Same here. You can use that, but the one that's most used, let's see how I can close this. Oh, there we go. Is X. That's used by Google, by Microsoft, by Facebook. All the big companies use X. That is hidden in your console here at XDevTools, where you can say, fully scan the page. Yay, thanks. Um, where you can just see all the issues as well, and from here on out you can fix it in your code. Go back and forth, see if you can get to 0 or to nearly 0. And you can see it here, it checks on the WCAG 2.1 AA, so that's fine. Now, if you really want to not have any accessibility issues, you can do it with unit testing. So I'm going to show you that as well. By the way, this is the code with Bootstrap because I found that very easy to do. I'm not a CSS writer, guys. I'm a .NET developer, please. So in here, I have a template and I have some components as well. And this is too low contrast, spoiler alert. This is missing alternative text, spoiler alert. But here in tests, I made an app.spec.js, which has the JustX plugin that you can install via Yarn or via npm. You can put it in here. And what you can do is say it has no accessibility violations, and then you can ask, okay, can you fill whenever an accessibility error comes up? So I already done it just in case it took 5 hours. So let's do that. And when you do that, you will see this. So it will show you, hey, HTML found image has a violation. Image needs to have alternative text. Here are the solutions, here is the link. And you can continue scrolling, how long you want. And if you put that in your CI/CD, for example, you can catch all of that before it actually goes live. Now, that is what I have when it comes to code. Let's see if I can, well, let's just do it like this. So for some extra resources for the people that are interested, here are a lot of links. So the law description, very long, but if you're interested, you can take a look at it. It's in Dutch, it's in English, it's in French, you can't imagine, or they probably have a language for it. The WCAG 2.1 document, also very long, but also very interesting. The Microsoft Inclusive Design, also very interesting to get some more sense of who you're actually designing or building a web app for. NVDA, that's the extra screen reader for Windows. And the Web 8 million report, which goes more into how accessible the top 1 million web pages are. So with that being said, feel free to find me online or to just talk to me while walking around for the upcoming 2 days. I will put the slides and the code on my GitHub repository, which is under speaker sessions material whenever you need it. Well, thank you.